Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jason.
I'm Amy.
And the fuzzy one that's running around like a lunatic is Freya. And we are 10-minute reviews, and we are back with another review. And shockingly enough, we're talking about a book and an author. Now, this time around, we're not going so indie. We're going to talk about a major author. One of the biggest authors on the planet. Former authors. He's since unfortunately passed away. I want to talk about Robert B. Parker. Robert B. Parker, who has written just an absolutely stupid amount of New York Times bestsellers, whose series have been turned into a TV show, a long-running TV show, whose series have been turned into multiple movies with Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck.
So we want to talk about, I'm going to talk about one book in particular. I want to talk about my favorite book. Now, a lot of people would not put this as their favorite of his Spenser books, but to me it is my absolute favorite. So please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and as always we are going to talk about four things. We're going to talk about the world, the characters, the plot, and the writing style. So I want to talk about Robert B. Parker's Potshot. And it is my absolute favorite of his books. And it's my favorite because of the second thing I'm going to talk about. So the world is very much modern times. So let's look out the window. It is very modern. Through a lot of his books, things change as the world changes. He adds new things. I mean, the first Spenser book, I want to say it was written in the 70s. So, they didn't have cell phones. I remember reading Spenser books that where it was a big thing that Hawk had a car phone in his car. So obviously he was fancy. So obviously things change as the world changes. So the world, our world, there's really not much else to put it. Most of his books focus on Boston. This particular book does not, but Boston. Spenser is from Boston. His girlfriend is from Boston. They live in Boston. He's a private investigator. So we'll go into the characters. Most of you guys are familiar with, if you've read any of the Spenser books, you guys are familiar with Spenser, which is also actually made into a movie. In fact, Mark Wahlberg played Spenser. In fact, Spenser books are made in multiple movies. But most of you guys are familiar with Spenser. Even if you've read the other books, like his Jesse Stone novels that Tom Selleck plays Jesse Stone in the movies, people that have read the Jesse Stone books have read the Spenser books. So if you've read Robert B. Parker, I'm fairly certain you're familiar with Spenser. The reason that I love Potshot so much is that he brings together all of the cool characters from his other books. Now, if you've read the entire series, then of course you're very, very familiar with Hawk. Hawk is there through most of his books, especially all the more recent ones. Just as badass as Spenser, if not more. And by the time Potshot comes out, you'll be just as familiar with Vinnie Morris, the criminal gunfighter with probably, as he puts it, probably the fastest hands. In the kind of murderous ways he can have. But he brings together Hawk, who's almost always there when something big goes down. Vinnie Morris, who's almost always there to have his back in Boston. It's the first time outside of Boston. He gets Teddy Sapp from down south, I think Georgia. He gets Cholo and Bobby Horace from California. Cholo possibly the only one as good with a gun as Vinnie Morris. He even gets that Las Vegas private eye, Bernard J. Fortunato, the little short, midgety, mouthy private eye. So he gets together all the really, really cool, fun characters, all the true badasses. He basically builds his own army. So, the plot. So in Potshot, Spenser is actually hired to come out to this no-name desert town. I want to say it's in Arizona, but it's this little I can't say no-name either because his name was Potshot. This little nothing desert town that has a criminal problem, a gang that has taken up residence in a nearby ravine kind of thing, out in the desert, and they're just terrorizing this town. So they hire Spenser to come out and fix it. Now, of course, he ends up finding some underlying mysteries that end up also affecting some of the people in charge of the town. But to deal with the actual criminal element, once he comes out and realizes how large this gang is, how wannabe tough the leader is, and just how many of them, he realizes he's a little bit outgunned. So he decides he's going to get a couple of guns. So he gets basically the best, toughest guns anywhere. He gets Hawk, he gets Vinnie Morris, he gets Cholo, Bobby Horse. And it's actually the first time that we really get to see Bobby Horse in any of the books. Cholo has shown up a bunch of times. You already know all about Vinnie. You already know all about Hawk. You already know all about Cholo. Teddy Sapp has even helped him a couple of times. What I find interesting about this is that he puts together this group of criminals, except for Teddy Sapp, the former cop, but he's kind of borderline, about like he's more Spenser than he is Vinnie Morris. He's more within the laws, but he's also no longer a cop, so he will do things that he thinks is right. But he puts together, for the most part, this group of criminals to take on this gang of criminals. He puts together master criminals to take on this gang of amateur punks. But with all his various backups, you would think you would see Quirk, you would see Belson, especially Belson, who owes him one for finding his wife, which is where we first get introduced to Cholo. But it was kind of cool to see Bobby Horse. We've never really seen him because Cholo is obviously the elite of the two, so he's the one that typically gets called for backup. So we get to see Bobby Horse. Bernard J. Fortunato was kind of a bolt out of the blue. That was an interesting one, but fun. He's a pretty amusing little character. And as far as the writing style itself goes, well, it's typical Robert B. Parker. He's very succinct with the wording, but oh my God, is Spenser a massive smartass. But he's a literate smartass. He will manage to insult you, make fun of you while quoting a book you've never even heard of, or just quoting Shakespeare, or quoting a 1940s hit movie.
So he's like Atticus?
No, not even close. It's not totally different. I mean, it's not even close. Robert B. Parker is probably, as far as this particular writing style goes, it's more noirish writing style. There's a reason that he was at his peak one of the biggest authors on the planet. His writing style is just, it's incredible, and it's hilarious.
Read any of them.
It's absolutely hilarious. It's not your genre. It's absolutely hilarious, and it follows through all the books, but Potshot especially really comes through, because not only do you have Spenser's snark, but you have Hawk's snark, who's even worse. You have Vinnie Morris, who barely speaks. You have Cholo, that almost never speaks, but when he does, you better listen. You have Bernard J. Fortunato, that never stops speaking. It makes for an interesting dynamic when you take all of them and put them in the same house together. So yeah, the writing style, you're gonna laugh out loud at least once reading any of his books. So that's my favorite of the Spenser books. I love them all. I've read them all that were written by Robert B. Parker. The ones that have come afterwards, while coming from big New York Times best-selling authors, it's impossible to completely mimic an author's style. You tend to start writing in your own style. So once Vinnie Morris started using more than 10 words in any given book, it's not Vinnie anymore. So a lot of things change. It's just like Lee Child's having his brother write the Reacher books now instead of him. Reacher's changed. He carries a cell phone now. Which
makes no sense.
It's just a different writing style. So, but the Robert B. Parker books, of which there's like 30 or more, they're fantastic. Plus the Jesse Stone books. I mean, Vinnie Morris shows up in the Jesse Stone books once or twice. Yeah, you guys have to check it out. And again, my favorite, Potshot, because it brings all the cool characters.
Woo.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye now.
Bye.